It's story time from Kahaniya Calling. Sacrifice doesn't come easy. We all know about a lot of sacrifices that parents make for their children. We have also heard a lot of stories about the sacrifices of our soldiers to save their motherland. However, today we bring to you the story of an unusual sacrifice. Let's hear the story from Dad.
When Marudu brothers were ruling over Sivganga, that is Periya Marudu and Chinna Marudu, they had a huge desire to build a huge and magnificent chariot for the deity of the temple, that is Swarn Kalishwar, referring to Lord Shiva, as they were the ardent devotees of Lord Shiva and of this deity in particular. So they looked for a sculptor who could do this job. Searching for a sculptor far and wide, they finally found one sculptor who had good enough experience, who was quite skillful, elderly, and who could really understand and do the job. Periya Marudu explained to him in detail about the chariot for Lord Shiva that he had envisioned. After a detailed and deep discussion, the sculptor agreed to work on this and to provide the chariot in the given time frame. Periya was really elated. He had a huge desire for this magnificent chariot and to be on that chariot along with Lord Shiva on the maiden run. So he was eagerly waiting for it. Now, after some time, the sculptor, that is Kupamuthu, he came and met Periya Marudu, and he told him that the work is going on well, but once the chariot was constructed, it was ready, for his reward, he wanted a commitment from the king that he would give him whatever he wanted. The king was a big philanthropist, and being an ardent devotee of Lord Shiva, who was so curious for this chariot to be constructed for him, he happily agreed. He said, "We will not turn down your request no matter what. You just build the chariot for us." So, as time passed, the chariot was finally ready. It was a sight to behold. It was a magnificent chariot with beautiful sculptures all around, the way Periya had wanted it to be. And everybody was just mesmerized looking at the beautiful chariot. And it was like a huge procession day that day. So wherein the king would go on the maiden ride along with the deity of the temple. Whole town was in celebratory mood, and the king got ready in his traditional attire, and there was funfair all around. Everybody was very joyous. On the topmost platform, they put an idol of Lord Shiva, and just below that platform, Periya Marudu, who was the king, he sat on it. And people started trying to pull the chariot forward. They had huge ropes like that of a python, and pulling the chariot, just like we see in case of other Rath Yatras, right? That it is considered quite auspicious, because people feel, okay, if they are a part of it, they get heavily blessed because of this act of theirs. So the entire crowd tried to pull the chariot with the thick ropes, just like python, but the chariot didn't even move an inch. At that time, Periya Marudu realized, okay, that I think the chariot did not move because I have not really rewarded the sculptor, that is Kuppamuttu. So he came down from the chariot and started calling for him. Now Kuppamuttu came from behind and he just removed a wedge from the wheel of the chariot. And he did it so smartly that in the crowd nobody realized, and he did it on the pretext of inspecting the chariot. And he reached the king. The king said, I apologize. I didn't reward you before going on the maiden run. I was so taken aback and I've been so looking for it. Tell me, what is your reward? What is it that you want? Kuppamuttu was quiet for some time. He was a little hesitant, but when the king asked again, he said in a weak voice that his reward should be that he wants to be the king for one day, that is today. Everybody was like shocked. This is heights of greed. You have done a magnificent job, but that doesn't mean that you should be asking to become a king for one day. These were the murmurs all around the crowd. This is so cheap and so mean, and lot of other such conversations. Chinna Murudu, the brother of Periya Murudu, got so angry that he took out the sword from his stealth and rushed towards Kuppamuttu to slay him. But Periya Murudu held his hand and said, no, brother, we cannot do this. This is not right. A word by the king has to be honored. Furious and his blood boiled, but he held on to himself. He was extremely angry. But then he was made the king immediately, and on that maiden run for the chariot, Kuppamuttu sat in place of Periya Murudu, that is just below the topmost platform. And now when people started pulling the chariot with those huge python-like ropes, it simply moved. There was a lot of cheers still. People were delighted with the huge chariot, but then there were a lot of grudges also going around that this is not fair. And they didn't want to pull any sculptor in place of the king. Anyways, the chariot moved on, and at one of the turnings, the chariot wheel, the huge chariot wheel, just hit a boulder and it shook heavily. As a result, Kuppamuttu, who was sitting on the platform just below the Lord's idol, he fell off from there and immediately got crushed by the massive wheel of the chariot. He was bleeding profusely, as if he was almost dead.